Anne Widdecombe, former Conservative MP, and Peter Dowd MP, former Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury and Labour MP for Bootle. Well, I'm going to start with you, Narinder, because I want to find out what your thoughts were, because I know you were tweeting about what you were watching, and people might be surprised at your thoughts, but what were your thoughts?
Well, look, I was just being so honest, and I think anybody who, if you want to look at this unbiasedly, I watched that. This wasn't a privileges committee. It was an unjust, petty, vengeful, blatant political stitch-up. And I watched that and thought, I'm no Boris fan. Everybody knows I'm not a Boris fan. But I watched that and thought, this is absurd. We are talking about, did he stand near that person? Did you see the table? Did you watch this? And Harriet Harman, who's the chairman, actually was sitting there looking at him with such utter contempt. How is this ever going to be fair? It was the most disgraceful thing I've ever seen. And actually, it was just narcissism. That privileges committee, how they will never look back and be embarrassed. I sat there with my teenage children who were laughing. They said it was like something out of a nursery. And I said, why are you laughing? They said, Mum, this is what used to happen at primary school. Did you push John? Did John put his Lego piece there? It was pathetic. 18 months later, and guess what? The media and the left wing are still talking about cake. I'm embarrassed.
Let's go to Peter Dowd MP, because he may have a different opinion. Peter, what's your view?
Look, this is a committee set up by the House of Commons, and it asks 7 members to look at all the information. The House asks it to do the job. 7 members look at the information, they take evidence, they obviously ask the former Prime Minister this, that and the other, and then they will come back with their report in relation to recommendations and potential sanctions. And we'll see what that is. But, this is a committee that's been asked to do the job. Don't blame the members of the committee, because they're the ones who've been asked to do the job. And at the end of the day,
Peter,
members of Parliament are asked to do all sorts of things. You sit on...
But Harriet Harman has already tweeted. Harriet Harman has already tweeted.
Can we go to Anne Widdecombe? Anne Widdecombe.
I think the danger is, if you keep on interrupting me, it's going to sound like this is a kangaroo court.
Not really. I'm the judge, and I won't let any kangaroos in here. Anne, your thoughts.
Everybody on this panel seems to think they're called Anne Widdecombe.
No, Peter, I'll come back to you in a minute. I just want to get Anne to you.
All the time. Look, why don't I go and you can just speak amongst yourselves?
No, Peter. No, it's just Anne's turn.
I've come on to talk about this, and I'm being interrupted, which is fine. So just let's leave it at that. You don't want to hear what I've got to say. That's great. So let's call it a day. Thank you very much.
Oh. All right, bye. See you later, Peter. Have a good day. Anne Widdecombe.
Right. Yes. Now, I ask myself this question. If a jury is being gathered, convened, every member of that jury is told you have to have a completely impartial approach. And certainly if any member of that jury had published a view beforehand, he or she would be disqualified. Now, several people on that committee said in advance of the committee even sitting for the first time that they considered Boris to have lied. They actually said that. So in other words, they pronounced a verdict before hearing any of the evidence. Now, that, to my mind, is the very definition of a kangaroo court. So, yes, I think this is a kangaroo court. I think the whole thing has been blown out of proportion. I mean, we've just seen some very kindergartenish behaviour from one member of the panel. That's what I think sums up this whole business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the other part of it, when you look at this, is that actually, and as was pointed out earlier, that the reason for the Privileges Committee is actually to depose of a Prime Minister, and Boris was no longer the Prime Minister. So should they not have called this off, do you think, Anne?
Well, I think they should have called it off anyway, because the police investigated, and they kept redefining what they were looking at. First of all, it was, did Boris knowingly mislead the House? Then it was, whether he knew or not, did he mislead the House? Well, every minister's guilty of that from time to time. Was it reckless? They've redefined the question so often. Now, there is just one question in my mind at the moment that he said, that he thought the rules had been followed? Did he actually think that the rules had been followed? And as far as I can see, I have to be quite honest about this. Yeah, I could have done that quite cheerfully in his position. If I was with people I'd been working with all day, I would see no difference between meeting those people with a file in my hand and meeting them with a bit of cake in my hand.
Well, also, there was the support bubble, so they've all been in the same space.
No.
So they've all been in the same space. And then there was the thing, and I remember this very clearly, that if you couldn't distance yourself to 1.5 meters or 2 meters, then you had mitigation. So maybe everyone did a COVID test. So then it was OK, because everyone had been tested, it was negative. So we did all that. And then there was the case that there were pictures. So the parliamentary photographer was taking pictures of the events anyway. I mean, Narinder, I was very surprised to hear you say what you said. And I am pleased that you've seen sense on this particular occasion. So thank you.
That's because I can look at things unbiasedly. And I watch that. And I've been on this very same show criticising Boris Johnson. So I'm being fair. Nobody, whether you dislike Boris Johnson, if you hate him, if you're a Labour, if you're a left-winger, you could not have watched that. Like the other panellists has just come off. Because you know what? It was embarrassing. You cannot sit there and say, actually, he's a liar. He is a liar. Actually, I watched that and thought, I relate to what he's saying. He's telling the truth. I thought he came across sincere and he was getting frustrated because the questions were so ridiculous. They were so ridiculous. And they kept asking the same question, expecting a different result. But his story was tight and it was correct because he was saying there were guidelines. And more importantly, he didn't intentionally cause any harm. He did what he was advised. I, for one, believed him, and I'm not a Boris fan, but I am now, because this was a political stitch-up. They are going after Boris Johnson. They want him out, and I think, you know what, is that all you've got? Is that all you've got, this unjust privileges committee? It's not even a proper legal setup. It's not even a proper legal setup.
Well, listen, I mean, I want to add to that, but there's not much more to add. Anne Widdecombe, final 30 seconds to you.
Yes. Well, the question was it a kangaroo court? It is. Was it a fair trial? No, it isn't. And I think this is one of the most disgraceful episodes that I've seen in the Commons.
I think they've decided he's guilty, in my view. So we're just going to hang about till June and wait for the... wait for the obvious verdict. Narinder Kaur, broadcaster and social commentator, thank you very much. And Anne Widdecombe, former Conservative MP, thank you so much. And we'll thank Peter Dowd, even though he's not here. All right, Peter Dowd MP, former Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury Labour.